Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your brother Jason, back at it again with another reaction video. So I decided to pre-record myself on reacting to something because, it's time for a rewind time, okay? I don't think there's a geography now this week. So we're gonna do Germany today. So, what I know about Germany is a lot. AP Euro heavily covers Germany. Okay, interwar period, they bankrupt, and then boom, Nazi Germany. Then boom, they get defeated, and then they carved up, and that's where I'm at right now. This is how I review, by the way, because I have a test, big test, in less than a month. Holy Roman Empire, Habsburg War. Yeah. Charlemagne. That's a good one. So let's just get started with this video. 15 minutes long. Remember when Geography Now was 15 minutes long? Now it's like a 40-minute video. Hey, it's alright. Anyways, we'll just get started with this video in 3, 2, 1, go.
Alright. Lieder, Hosen, Schnitzel, beer, bratwurst, order, bread and beer, complicated history
Bayern
beer,
Munich.
no humor, EDM,
Munich
and
as well.
gummy bears that will kind of like give you
Bundesliga as
diarrhea,
well.
but it's like worth it. Ugh, those are such horrible stereotypes that every German is so sick and tired of hearing. One gummy bear?
Gummy bear.
It's time to learn geography.
It is.
Hey everyone, I'm your host Barbie.
What time
So
is it? I
we've
don't
conquered
even know.
Belgium's castle,
Oh, it's
jumped through Denmark's
10:29.
lagoon, danced through France's forest, and now we've made it to the
I-
final
I
boss of the
kinda
EU,
want,
Kingpin
like-
Germany. Level 1,
I
begin.
want like a sausage. thing,
You know why
like,
I'm
muffin.
smiling. Yep, Germany has a lot of territorial anomalies. We'll get into that in a little bit, but first, Germany is located in central Western Europe, bordered by 9 other countries. Don't forget little Luxembourg, with small coasts on the North and Baltic Seas, which they own about 50 small islands. Now, Germany, like the US, is a federal republic which has 16 smaller states, or Bundesländer, each with its own constitution, 3 of which are cities, the capital
No,
Berlin, Hamburg, and
German
Bremen, which
language
is actually
be-
kind of like 2 cities, including Bremerhaven on the coast, but
Nope.
they kind of act like one entity. Fun side note, Lower Saxony is actually geographically situated further north than regular Saxony. Now let's jump into the fun stuff. Now, we already discussed the Jungholz Quadrupoint and the Vennbahn railway enclaves with Belgium and Austria. However, there's a few more. The entire town of Bussingen am Hochrhein is surrounded by Switzerland, whereas part of the Constance is cut off by the Rhine River and surrounded by Switzerland. However, immediately across the river, a small patch of empty land on the German side actually belongs to Switzerland. Finally, they split the island of Usedom with Poland in the north. Germany is interesting because every state in the country has its own distinct culture, dialect, history, food, traditions. I mean, Bavarians will be quite drastically different from Schleswig-Holsteiners. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern will be different from Saarland.
No.
This all has to do with ancient and recent
Yeah.
history. Basically, in the quickest way
And
I
then
can
Bismarck
summarize
be
this,
like,
Germanic
"Ayo,
tribes, Roman wars, Charlemagne,
we-
3
we
kingdoms,
whole
this guy
family,
marries an
we a
Italian,
team."
creating a whole new mess called the Holy Roman Empire, made up of 300 smaller separate kingdoms, states, and dukedoms, which had nothing to do with Romans. Teutonic Knights, Brandenburgs became Prussia, Habsburgs became Austrians, Lithuanians and Poles made their own thing, whereas the Hungarians joined the Austrians. Wars, battles, Napoleon comes over and messes everything up, and finally, German nationalism surges, and in 1871, Otto von Bismarck creates the first proto-German unified state. And then they're all
Yeah,
like, oh
remember
dang,
when
we
Germany
came late
had
to
the
this
Polish
game. We gotta
corridor?
scramble for some colonies, and that's how all of these
Not
countries
no
at
more.
one point spoke German. Oh, and also keep in mind, like 300 years
Yeah,
before
and
this,
then
a
they
German
lost
banking company
it.
obtained colonial rights to Venezuela for like 20 years. They were looking for the lost city of El Dorado. So technically, you can kind of say Germans
But
colonized
they
the
weren't, like-
Americas, but it wasn't like a
It said
nationalized conquest.
1528, and it
Fast
was like
forward
a
even
bunch of
more,
smaller
and then you
states
get World
during
War
that time.
I. The monarchy ends, Treaty of Versailles, they lose land, Nazis come in, World War II, Germany splits in 2 for about 40 years, and then finally, we get the Germany we have today. East Germany, consisting of these states, is today still quite different from the rest of Germany as it was first occupied and influenced by the Soviet Union. They are generally not as well off economically as the rest of the country, as you can still see the blocky Soviet-style buildings sprawled throughout the regions. In fact, the city of Berlin was split in half, and the west side was actually an enclave of West Germany, only accessible by train and highway. You can even see from a satellite image the divide. East Berlin still uses the yellowish tinted sulfur vapor light bulbs, whereas the west still uses fluorescent and mercury arc white tinted light bulbs. Now the funny thing is, although Berlin is the largest city in Germany, the busiest airports are actually Frankfurt, Munich, Dusseldorf, with Berlin Tegel ranking at number 4.
always
Otherwise, some
Frankfurt.
top notable
I don't know,
landmarks and
like,
spots would be the
when I
Brandenburg
was in
Gate, the Valhalla, Cologne Cathedral,
LA,
the
it would
Ulminster
always
Church, the
be
tallest
like
in the world, the
Frankfurt,
Berlin Victory
Frankfurt.
Column, and hundreds of castles all over. The most notable one probably being Neuschwanstein, the concept concept behind Disney's Cinderella Castle. Germany also has over 400 zoos,
Wow.
more than any other country in the world. And of course, everybody knows about the Autobahn, the highway system in which if you see this sign, it means there's no speed limit. And it's like that for a huge portion of the roadway. And no wonder, considering how vast and wide those cultivated countrysides can get. Time for level 2. Okay, think of it this way. In Germany, the more down you go, the more up you move. Basically, Germany lies on the Atlantic shelf in the north that starts with the mudflats in the North Sea. Seriously, this island right here is accessible only for a few hours by foot until the tide comes and floods everything. Then everything just kind of creeps up into the
What's
Alps in
going
the
on?
south by
What?
Bavaria and
How's it even
Baden-Württemberg, with the
possible?
highest mountain, Zugspitze, located right along the border with Austria. Kind of like France, Germany is
Imagine
filled with
having
a vast
that
irrigating
mountain
network
as
of
your
rivers like the
backyard.
Spree, Elbe,
I
Weser,
don't know.
Rhine, and of
I'm
course
just-
the mighty Danube that starts here.
I'll
About a
be
third of the
crying,
land is
man.
arable and another third is woodland, and after millennia of civilization, Germans have cultivated the crap out of their country. Most agriculture, of course, happens in the north flat plains and the central regions of the country, which is, by the way, kind of like Europe's tornado alley. Due to its position sandwiched between the Arctic blasts of Scandinavia and the moist, warm jet streams of the Mediterranean below, Germany can be an atmospheric war zone in the summer. There are more tornadoes on average in Germany than any other country in Europe. Speaking of flat farmland, Germany is the world's largest rye and
funny. I
hop
didn't even
producer.
know there
Germans
was, like, tornadoes in
absolutely love their
Europe.
bread. There are over 300 different
So
kinds
is
of bread in the
America,
country, more
with
types than any other country in the
Oklahoma
world, and
and
almost every meal
Texas,
incorporates some kind
big
of
old
slice or
beautiful
small
states.
bun or Brötchen of bread.
love
Hast
that.
du gluten-free? Nein! Germans are heavy meat eaters, specifically in pork. They basically know every possible way to cook a pig. Over 50 different types of sausage exist alongside schnitzels, rouladen, sauerbraten, Schweinsachse, and at a big party you might find Spanferkel. Beer reigns supreme all over as the third
Kinda
largest
wants some meat
consumers
right
of
now.
beer after the Czech Republic,
But
even
it's
their president has no
breakfast.
problem with public intoxication, and Austria. Germany is world-renowned for their beer, which, by the way, follows the Reinheitsgebot rule in which they are only allowed to use water, hops, malt, and sometimes yeast. Nonetheless, about 1,300 breweries exist, pumping out over 5,000 brands. The oldest continuously existing brewery in the world, started by Benedictine monks in 1040 AD, can be found here. Germany takes the environment very seriously, and for the past 2 decades has been going
Middle
on a
Ages,
major
though.
green
No.
revolution. As of today, they have the
Bad memory.
largest installed solar power capacity, and green infrastructure practices like home installed turbines and solar panels have seen a huge surge in the past 10 years. Forests dominate the southern regions where the landscape gets hillier and mountainous, the most famous one being the Black Forest or the Schwarzwald in
Forest,
Baden-Württemberg.
yeah.
Deer, bears, boar, foxes, badgers, and the national animal, the eagle, can be found thriving in these parts. Nonetheless, economically, Germany is known mostly for their exceptional engineering and industry production. Companies we've all heard of like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Audi, Telecom, Nivea, DHL, Bosch, Adidas, Puma, Adidas, Puma! Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Biscoito Bolacha thing.
What if
from
I'm a
Brazil.
Nike
Remember?
guy,
Well,
though?
we have mudflats, tornadoes,
Well,
pork,
I don't
beer,
know.
mountains. All that's missing is people.
I'm more of a like.
Level 3.
I'm more like
Fun little
a
side note, in Germany,
Jordan
this is free, not this. Now, if
with
the
the
EU was a
shoes
family,
type
Germany would
guy,
kind of be like the dad who got out
and
of
then with the
rehab, reconciled with
clothes,
his wife and kids, and is taking his new life very
maybe
seriously as he is
ideas,
haunted by the
'cause
demons of his past.
Nike's
every
kind
day.
of bland
First of all, the country has
sometimes.
about
They
82
just
million people
slap
and is the
a
most
plain
populated
shirt
in the
with the
EU, second
swoosh
most
on
in
it.
Europe
That's-
after Russia,
that's
and
all
has
I
the fourth
guess.
largest nominal GDP in the world. About
So,
80% of the country identifies
maybe
as ethnically
ideas,
German,
but
12% other
they
Europeans,
do be
mostly
playing
Polish,
too,
Italian,
but
Dutch, and so
which
on.
is
Turks make up about 3.5%,
stripes going
Asians at
through.
2%, and the rest are made up of other groups like Africans and Americans.
I
Also,
don't
they use
know,
the
it's
euro,
just
they
a
use the C and
lose-lose
F-type
situation.
outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road.
The
Germany
Jordan
is
good,
without a
though.
doubt a global powerhouse. It is the strongest economy in the EU and makes up about 16% of the union's population. It's the third largest exporter and importer of goods in the world. After the United States, Germany is also the second most popular global migration destination. Germany experiences a high standard of living,
Arab
tuition-free
migration.
universities, if you get accepted, that is, a mostly government-subsidized universal healthcare system, about a quarter is still privatized, and state
I'm
pension
not
for
gonna get
retirement at
accepted.
age 65. Now, when it comes to
What if
language,
I wanna
things
go
get a
to
little tricky.
Harvard?
Each state
They
kind of
ain't
has their
gonna
own
accept me,
type
though.
of German. However, to get by, most Germans learn how to speak Hochdeutsch, or High German, which is the standard dialect. The European Charter, however, protects the minority languages of Frisian, Danish, Romani, Sorbian, which is like a Slavic-based language used along the Czech-Polish border, and Plattdeutsch, or Low
Slavic.
German, which has
What they doing
similarities to
all the
Dutch
way
and
over
is typically
there?
used by the Amish and Mennonite communities across the world. In terms of regional distinctions, though, Germany is kind of divided into 5 cultural areas: Rhineland, East and Middle Deutschland, Norddeutschland, Baden-Württemberg, and Bavaria. Rhineland is on the west side and has a culture somewhat more influenced by France, more Catholics, Carnival celebrations are huge out here. East and Middle Germany was the part that used to be its own country for 40 years as it was influenced by the Soviets. Sorbians can also be found here too. Northern Germany has a coastal sea culture that identifies closer with Denmark and the Netherlands. They are also known for being kind of quiet and reserved. Baden-Württemberg has an interesting Swabian culture where they speak a dialect so thick that only about 40% of it is intelligible to other Germans. And then you have Bavaria, which is where the Americanized, perpetuated stereotypes about Germany came from, with Lederhosen, dirndls, half-timber, beer houses, and cuckoo clocks. For the record, Germans are sick of those stereotypes. It's like saying all Americans are cowboys with guns and horses. Speaking of stereotypes, some of the stereotypes in Germany include things like Saxons being very indecisive, Berliners are always bragging about themselves, Swabians are stingy, Bavarians drink too much,
When I think of America, I think of craziness.
And so on. Words differ
British
from regions
people
too. For
that
example, in High
are
German,
not
you would say
British
Auf
people.
Wiedersehen, but in Bavarian, you would say
Just
Fertig.
crazy
In Kölsch,
people.
you would say
I don't know.
Tschüss, and in Rhineland, you might say Ajus. And there's so many
Look at
compound
our
words that get really
politics.
long and complicated,
They
like
be crazy.
Rindfleischetikettierungs-, Überwachungsaufgaben, Übertragungsgesetz. This is because many words are
going on?
mehrtudig, or ambiguous
I'll be
words that are
talking-
kind of
I'll-
elongated
I'm
to give off
talking
an
about, like,
extensive meaning.
something
Germans have very vivid
different,
imaginations
boom.
and make up words for everything. Like my favorite word, Backpfeifengesicht. Not this time. By the way, for the record, this letter makes a double S sound. However, spelling reformers have tried to decrease the usage of this letter in recent years, which has led to some protests. Germans also love dubbing
How do you
everything from foreign media into German. Some like this, some don't, but either way, it's here to stay. About 60% of the country identifies, at least nominally, as Christians, split between
Protestant.
Protestants and Catholics. Germany was even the birthplace of the Protestant
Yeah,
Reformation, split from the Catholic Church by
I
Martin
probably need to
Luther.
study
Otherwise, the
that
rest are
'cause I
mostly
don't
agnostic
even
or
remember
irreligious, with a
all of
noticeable
that
community of
'cause it's
Muslims, mostly from the Jewish tradition
Reformation
and
is
Christian
kind of
communities at about
boring.
5%, as well as a
Okay, I
few Jews,
really
Buddhists,
don't
and Hindus rounding up the
care about
remaining
religious
1%.
wars,
To kind of get
but they're
a feel of what it's like to be
important, so I
German, you kind of
have
have to understand
to-
where they've come from. After World War II, they kind of had a lot of work to do. However, it wasn't until the mid-50s and early 60s that the Wirtschaftswunder, or economic wonder, happened, to which almost everybody got to work. Basically, this guy envisioned and implemented a social market economy combined with free market capitalism alongside socialist policies that established fair competition in a
Social.
welfare state. GDP increased by
You're not allowed
80%,
to do
investments by 120%, labor forces
don't
were
know.
utilized to the maximum. Things started to get better. In Germany, all children are corralled into general public schools until age 10, when they are given the option to enroll in 3 different types of middle schools. Gymnasium, geared towards focusing on higher linguistic, mathematic, and science fields for universities. Realschule, a middle ground type of
I wanna
school.
have a
and
gym class.
Hauptschule, a school that is
Not
geared
some
towards helping
boring,
kids that seem to show
dumb
promise
math
in specific
classes.
vocation or trades. Germany also has the largest music market in the EU and the 3rd in the world after the US and Japan. They love preserving their heritage and culture through music and art. In fact, there are around 130 national orchestras, mostly supported by public money, and artists get a 50% reduction in health insurance through a special type of offer in the legal system. One thing that still kind of supposedly maintains itself in Germany is the mindset of Vergangenheitsbewältigung. Totally butchered that, which kind of translates to a lingering sense of guilt from the past. Germans have reportedly some of the lowest levels of national pride, and unless if you're at a soccer game, chances are you will almost never see anyone
say
holding a
soccer,
German flag
please.
or waving it in any kind of like
I say
patriotic
sometimes,
setting. It's
but
weird, but it's kind of
That's
how things
because
are.
Americans like to watch.
They've made great strides to move on from the past.
They do like
Nazi
soccer.
flags and Mein Kampf are incredibly illegal items to own in Germany, and they even have a rule, the Volksverhetzung, which basically says you cannot talk trash by denying the past atrocities. Some people say this infringes on free speech, others say it's good because it solidifies truth. Otherwise, some notable Germans throughout history include Charlemagne, although he was a Frank, but I guess it kind of counts. Albrecht, Dürer, David Friedrich, Gutenberg, Bach, Beethoven, Karl Benz, Albert Einstein, although Americans would like to claim that he moved to the US and became an American, Johannes Kepler, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Friedrich Schiller, Michael Shoemaker, Alex von Humboldt, and of course Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels co-founded Marxism. But one thing Germans do best would have to be diplomacy.
Yeah.
To this day, the German passport
Important
holds the most visa-free
guy
nations
to
out of any other country in the
remember.
world, just beating Sweden. Therefore, you can kind of conclude that
Man, I should
Germany
watch
kind of
some
knows how to relate to
geography
people.
now,
Let's find
Europe.
out how in the final round, level 4.
I should probably like watch like the European.
Germany knows how to make
Finals
friends. They have over
before the
220
new one
diplomatic
comes out,
missions abroad
so then
and
I
over
could get
350
review,
honorary
and then
consuls
I
and
could
have an incredibly high position
not
of authority
study,
in the
but that's
EU.
bad,
Their
so I'm
closest
gonna start
African
studying.
friend would probably be Namibia. As a former German colony way back in the 19th century, Namibia held on relations, and to this day, German is still a recognized language in Namibia. Germans have been supporting and sharing ties both economically and ideologically for over a century. India and South Korea are really close friends in Asia. India supported both East and West Germany during the Cold War, and after reunification, they were like, woohoo! Woohoo! Even better! And Germany is to South Korea what Japan is to France. They love to piggyback off of each other's ideas
so
and
random.
cultures, especially in the automotive industry. Many South Koreans were sent to Germany after the Korean War to work abroad and study, and Germans have been growing in fascination with visiting South Korea. The US is probably the closest ally outside of the EU. About 30% of Americans claim
NATO.
German heritage, and after World War II, the Marshall Plan allowed the US to give post-war aid to Germany, which helped kickstart the economic
Marshall
recovery.
Plan.
Germany was a key
Yes,
figure in the
I need to
formation of the state
remember
of
that.
Israel after World War II, which after the Holocaust left an obligation to invest in the building up of a Jewish community. Turkey is probably the closest Middle Eastern ally, as the Turks make up the largest Asian demographic in Germany, although many of them may or may not also identify as Kurds. But since Kurds don't have a state of their own, they usually go under Turkish passports when immigrating and are documented as such. Their best friends, however, would probably be literally all their neighbors. The thing is, Germany is kind of like Bosnia and Herzegovina, in which by default they kind of get friends based off
Yeah, I
of the
think that's
regional
bird.
alliances.
Yeah.
Bavarians get along with Austrians, Baden-Württembergs get along with Switzerland, East Germany has good relations with the Slavic
What about
countries, the
Spain,
Rhine
man?
states love Belgium, Luxembourg, and France, and the north side loves the Netherlands and Denmark. France, though, is kind of like the trophy wife of Germany, as the two have had an angry start, but then eventually fell in love and worked
Angry
together
start,
beautifully.
I
France
would
is
say,
the
like,
beautiful,
majority.
flashy spokesperson for the EU that stands in the spotlight as Germany stands in the background, managing all the money and logistical work. In conclusion, although Germanic peoples have existed for thousands of years, an actual unified German state didn't appear until kind of recently, and the brief time that they've been around, they've kind of gone through some of the most intense, world revolutionizing historical events possibly imagined. Yet, they've come out working hard and building their way up to become a world superpower. You gotta give it to them. There's something about the Germans. And with that, final boss level complete. Stay tuned. Another African state Germany has ties to, Ghana, is coming up next.
Why you gotta tie it up to Germany? Okay, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Fun video. It was good. I got reviewed. Now I might go back to sleep because I hate being a morning person. And if I still am awake, then I'm gonna be more hungry and I can't cook food. So I'm gonna go back to sleep probably. So anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for this video. Please like and subscribe, like I said. Anyways, see you guys next time.